Q1 earnings beat estimates. Give us a sense of how much Asia contributed to that. How strong is Asia looking?
Thanks, Haslinda. Well, to be honest, we came out of 2019 with some really strong momentum. And the month of January, we sustained that momentum. And as you well know that, and pretty much across the world, we've seen the whole lockdown thing happen. And Asia is no exception. We've seen a significant slowdown in consumer spending behavior just with the nature of the lockdowns. And on the backdrop of that, I think we delivered a really strong quarter in the first quarter. And I would add that, it's more than just transactions. I think what we are really focused here in the Asia-Pac region is things around service verticals, which we've been investing heavily over the last, I'd say, 10 odd years, and really creating more diversification in the revenue pool from analytics to cyber and intelligence. And I think that's the story for us in our first quarter results.
The story ahead, though, is about an economic slowdown. How concerned are you about payment defaults among your customers, given that unemployment is rising and growth is just easing in a big way?
Well, from a Mastercard standpoint, this is really for our banks who are essentially focused on risk management and making sure that credit portfolios are performing well. They're making sure that, recoveries and collections, that's a priority, big one for them. For Mastercard, we as Haslinda don't take any of that balance sheet risk. We are in the transaction business. We are in moving money from point A to point B. And I think when you look at that, our view is that, yes, at the current time, we really feel that in the last few months, we have seen almost hit the bottom. You've seen it through March, we've seen it through April, and now when we look at our numbers, at least the volume numbers, we feel that we are probably getting to a level of stabilization. And we're looking at this in 4 different phases. It's containment, which was in the early part of the year, as governments scrambled to make sure with the lockdowns to prevent the spread of the virus. And now I believe we are in that stabilization phase. Now, how long the stabilization phase will take before getting to what we call normalization, where we will start to see some sectors of the economy positively rebound, and then finally growth, I think it's early days. We'll just have to play this over the next weeks and months, and hopefully we'll get there sooner from stabilization to normalization. Contactless is a big play for us. We've been investing heavily in this space. And now what we've seen is in the course of March, we've seen a very rapid shift towards contactless. In quarter one itself, we've seen over 40% growth in contactless transactions, and we believe that is going to continue to shift further in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, I want to get to your study in just a bit, Ari. But first, cross-border payments. You saw volumes fall some 1%. And this is usually tied to travel, hotels, restaurants as well. Are we likely going to see continued pressure amid some of these lockdowns we're seeing in the region, as well as people just still not traveling? And will it only get better once these travel restrictions get lifted?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Yvonne. I think the cross-border side, where it involves physical movement of people, whether it's, airlines, whether it's hotels, that has completely been hit really hard. And I'm sure you're talking to each of these sectors, as well to get a sense of it. My sense is that, it will take a little longer on cross-border where travel is involved. However, what we've seen is e-commerce is coming in, and, e-commerce on cross-border has actually been quite resilient. And then if you look at our weekly trending data, e-commerce clearly is one of the bright spots. Now, whether that will sustain, again, we watch this really closely. Time will tell, but, there is a little bit of a hedge. When you're losing travel, you're getting a little bit of a lift with e-commerce, growth.
And Ari, you mentioned about contactless payment. You're seeing jumps of 40% or so during this pandemic. There certainly is a lot of competition, though, when it comes to not just contactless payment, but mobile payments as well. I mean, you have non-bank players like Alipay, WeChat Pay, Globe that have pretty strong footholds right now. You also have Asian banks kind of taking part in the space as well. How much are you willing to kind of continue on this trend and invest to not just get more users, but also retain them?
It's a great question. You know, when you think of contactless, one is contactless as we all use in the physical card. But contactless is also going into devices. Whether you're talking about the wallets, whether you talk about Apple Pay, whether you talk about Samsung Pay, a lot of that is actually powered by, Mastercard. So when you register your card credentials in any of these wallets, you're actually, the technology called tokenization, we are storing the token in those devices, which enables, secure payments through those devices. So our view is that irrespective of what the form factor will be, we should be relevant. And whether you're moving from a physical plastic or you're moving into devices, we see a role for Mastercard in the years ahead. And that is precisely what we are driving with our contactless and what we call near-field communication, NFC, strategy of enabling payments through devices as well.
Ari, Mastercard has said that it wants to pare down costs. Will that impact your plans and your strategy in Asia? Could that impact perhaps hiring?
Well, Haslinda, we've made a very clear commitment that, through this difficult period, which is causing enough suffering at a human level, the commitment we have made, and we still stand by it, that we are not looking to have any type of, headcount reduction or efficiency of cost out, which will have impact on people. That's a very big statement for us. Again, this is with a point of view and with outlook as we see today. Whether that will change, I can't comment on that, but that is a conscious effort that we are making. Now, as far as our overall priorities in the region go, yes, I would say that, we are looking at our investment priorities in a much, much stricter way. We have to meet our obligations and managing our costs. Having said that, we remain completely committed to some of the bigger investments that was pre-COVID, which was committed. Things like our entry into China, post our license approval in February. There's a whole work stream and execution of enabling our technology platforms, entry into China. We remain fully committed to that. We're also implementing and working as we speak on the Asia-Pacific real-time hub for fast payments. The first country to go live is going to be Philippines at the end of the year. And those investments and commitments, we remain strongly on course, with them. So no big shifts in strategy, no big shifts in the commitments we have in the market, but it's really optimization and making sure we are being prudent in the way we are deploying our resources.
And Ari, quickly, earlier this year, we heard from China, the PBOC, approving the Mastercard to create a bank card clearing business. It seems to be a little bit late in the game, but how quickly can you actually start operating?
Well, this is the approval came through in February, and right now we are in that execution mode. Within 12 months, we hope to be, on the ground in China, and that's where, we are. It's a commitment. It's a long journey for us to enter China. We're really excited about that opportunity.